I am in the studio with a new friend who is very intentional, Austin Levin.
Love intentional friends.
Austin Levin from Core Value Insurance Group, Medicare Guru.
I don't know if I go that far, but I know enough.
You
I know
do.
enough.
You absolutely do. And what I want to start with is you being a very intentional referral partner or strategic alliance. Last week we met with Nick, your buddy, and who reached out to me on Instagram through a DM through one of these things that we were posting on social, and asked to take some time to grab some coffee. Where I met you and told me a very, very heartfelt story about the family business that there was. So I want the audience to kind of listen to that first. I really want to know a little bit more now that we have the platform, and I want the audience to know what's the story behind Core Value Insurance Group, and beforehand, what happened?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. And I think that intentional is a good word, because I think that, sometimes professional friendships can start professional, but they can grow because of a lot of similar intent and stories. So, I'm very excited to be here. Yeah. And I know Nick is bummed he's not here. He's I will get to where Nick is, but
we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, we'll talk about Nick. I'll get his moment of shine. But yeah, so a story I'm really proud of. Family business is something that is synonymous with everything that I do. Understanding what family business means. I mean, technically any privately owned business you could say is a family business. But family business is really truly made up of, and in its term is truly the culture that you build in an organization. And for me, family business is just what my life is. So I'll go back in time, 50 years ago, my grandparents living in Philadelphia. My grandfather grew up in South Philadelphia, 8th and Rittner. My grandmother grew up by the airport. They Jewish, children to Jewish immigrants, kind of the expected story you'd imagine. My grandmother was a secretary for a period of time, then had 2 children. My grandfather was a plumber. He worked in a hardware store. Sort of just living at the time for them was an American dream. They did enough to support their family. But they took a chance on entrepreneurship. The 2 of them together in their little garage, started putting together jalousie windows and glass block units for homes, for replacements in homes. And when I say the rest is history, the rest is history.
Yeah, right.
But my family has lived the American dream story. It's the best way to say it. My grandparents built a small local kind of wholesale manufacturing distribution organization that was, using the word organization for when they started was probably a word that was too sophisticated. There was a mom and pop business. And for many years they grew it. As my dad grew up, he grew up around a business that had 10, 15 employees that was slowly growing every year. They started getting into aluminum replacement windows. That was the large product they made. And they served local contractors. So a contractor would get a job in a row home in Port Richmond. They would go to my grandfather, my grandmother. They would get a customized window. They would sell it to the contractor, and the contractor would install it.
But they still make it in the garage?
At that point, it was probably a little bit bigger.
Right, yeah.
So, over the years, they actually have a book that they wrote. My parents wrote it with them, and they had an author come about their life. It's called As the Window Tilts. So we got it published.
No way.
Yeah, it was cool because it's really it's an awesome, it truly is an American dream story. So little by little, they grew the business.
Sure.
And, my dad grew up in it. It was all he knew. My dad went to Northeast High School. My mom and dad have been together since my mom was 15 and my dad was 17. So true high school sweetheart.
It's a fairy tale story.
It is. My mom grew up in Southampton, up in Bucks County, and little by little this business grew. They served mom and pop businesses themselves, right? Similar to how you guys do with a lot of the the PNC work and whatnot that you guys do. They worked with local contractors, right? There wasn't these large contracting groups. It was firemen and police officers on the weekend.
Wow.
They were doing extra work, things like that. And they built a true local business. So my dad joined the business right out of high school. He'll famously tell everyone he almost failed out of high school. He had a teacher that if you don't come to class, I'll give you a D so you can pass. So, not a sort of family that focuses on education in the past. But my mom went off to Delaware, went to school, and my dad came in and innovated the business.
Nice.
Started making vinyl windows and really looked and said, okay, we have this thing, we have this goodwill in this community, but how do we scale it? So took what was an archaic business that was truly at the time, no computers, no systems, no anything. This is probably late 80s, early 90s, and then brought the business forward. My mom got involved right out of college and worked in the business. So you have my mom, my dad, their parents, my dad's first cousin, who is still at the business, even though, actually today, and a lot of family members. I'll go back to my grandparents' first employee. His name was Aldo DeLuca, I say senior. He was their next door neighbor. He worked for our family for 40 odd years and retired. His son, Aldo DeLuca Jr., is actually one of the partners in our CFO at Core Value.
Wow.
So when you talk about longevity,
I love that full circle. And there's so much scaling involved. I mean, we started this story.
Yeah, we
started this story in a garage.
Yeah.
And then, I kind of try to jump in and you had a facility at that point. And just because I kind of know where we're going with this story, the future scaling, the relationships with the local community and the contractors in the community, and your father being innovative enough to realize vinyl's now the new trend and getting. So I think like for the person listening right now, I mean, the constant innovation is necessary no matter what type of business you're running.
Yeah. And I think it happens generation to generation. A lot of times I think that, private business owners, they get stuck in their ways. It's normal.
Sure.
Like my grandfather was someone who was very confident. He was the boss.
Sounds a little stubborn if you like my family.
Extremely stubborn.
Teach my father how to use a cell phone.
He was up until the day he passed. He was a stubborn man, but confident, and he was. I think every entrepreneur that is successful is a little OCD. It's my belief. It's just like a level of organization, liking things the way that they are, and having a vision of what you believe success is, and then making sure that that's actually happening.
Sure.
So he had his way. My dad came in, locked horns, of course, wanted to move the business forward, bring a computer in.
Right.
I mean, literally like that, early 90s, mid 90s, right?
Those are fighting words, technology.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's making sure that bringing credit cards, not everything in cash. It's those little things that are like, you laugh now.
We still have a few people who try to come into the office and pay for their insurance with cash. It's like we can't really do that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think that would go over well. I don't know what insurance carrier would
IOU, an IOU for a year premium.
Yeah. I think Tony Soprano might have gotten away with it. He could have slipped a couple insurance brokers, but other than that, so my dad came in, my mom came in, innovated the business, grew, realized a couple things. Obviously, technology and innovation is necessary. Realized that it was going to be hard to scale just the one-to-one local contractor relationships, knowing that contractor groups and sort of more B2B scalable relationship was necessary. But never, with all those things, never lost the focus of the business, which was investing in people, right? My family has always made, and I even to this day in this business that we're in now, people always come first. And that's where we go back to family business. I often tell people, like, I don't expect my employees to feel like I treat them like my own family, because they're not my blood. I wouldn't kill for them. My wife, my parents, my sister, another story. But there are family values of mutual respect and time investment and caring about the little things that are happening in their life that go a long way.
Absolutely.
So 50 years of a manufacturing business in Philadelphia and never one even close chance to having a union.
Wow. Okay.
So in Philadelphia, that is kind of unheard of.
That's good.
And that is a reflection of making an investment in people, making sure that they're heard, what their needs are, making sure that they are fed, and fed can be financially.
In many ways.
Literally,
right? Yeah.
making sure there's food there for them, but making sure that they're taken care of. And then once again, just being a human, treating every single person with respect. So my dad pulled the business forward. My grandfather and grandmother sold their shares of the business to my father in 2001. They retired down to Florida, never looked back, went cold turkey. And after that point, that gave my dad and my mom, and they were a team. That's one thing I really want to emphasize that my parents did something that a lot of people and my grandparents did it, where a husband and wife
Absolutely.
Stuck together through working together every single day
Absolutely.
and grew a business, which is something that is unheard of, especially at the scale that eventually got to. So
Absolutely.
get into the 2000s and the business just kind of exploded. Strategic partnerships with large contracting groups that are out selling and actually going door to door. One really strategic partnership with a company called Power Home Remodeling.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which some of the listeners maybe may know because
I'll give them a
everywhere
shout out.
now.
I know the company. I actually attended a few events around that company. Asher, the CEO, does a good job with culture. I'll talk on that for briefly.
Yeah,
I
please.
think I learned a lot from that company as well, Power. And when I got into insurance, I too saw the opportunities with the contractors and trying to get ourselves situated in that B2B space. But what I learned from Asher and his team was the culture. I looked around at the people he was hiring and what he was doing with his employees. All the ages were generally younger individuals, but they all were friends outside work.
Yeah.
It was a very, very unique experience that I never really experienced anywhere else I worked.
Yeah.
And me, as someone associated with some of the people working there, I also started feeling like I was actually like a Power employee. It was kind of weird.
They truly have mastered the art of employee culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when we started working with them, Corey and Asher, who are the current CEOs, and both, I can't say enough good things about them and the whole organization and the partnership we had with them for so many years. They hadn't even joined the business yet, or if they did, they were just young salesmen coming out of college. And it was two cousins, Adam and Jeff Callender, and when we started with them, they were just local in the Philadelphia area, and we were just local. And the story goes that, from what I understand of the story, I was still a little kid, that they had been burned by another manufacturer. And my dad, they had sent an email in. My dad had gotten in contact with them. And little by little over the years, as they grew as a sales organization, we just kind of followed behind.
That's awesome.
And, for many years, we were their sole window and door manufacturer.
That's great.
And, I won't talk exact specifics, but you can Google. They do.
They're a big company.
They're proud of the fact they do $1 billion plus in revenue a year, and it's extremely impressive. But they were definitely sub 100 million when we met them. I mean, I would say probably sub 25 million. So two companies that grew together, a beautiful partnership. They made a ton of investment in us as a vendor, and we made reciprocal investment in them. But they are a beautiful example of,
I love that story.
The investment in your people and culture returns itself 10 times.
I love that story, and we'll close with the fact that I got into a different industry coming from food service back over to insurance, and they were the one company that I started modeling a lot of our things off of too. The culture was the one thing. I'm very proud of the team that we brought on. They're very family oriented. They're aggressively young individuals selling the product, but they know that there's a bigger thing outside of the insurance sales. So I would say that I kind of adopted a little bit of that, as well as what they do for their clients, their client appreciation events. I mean, we can go on and on about that. But Austin, I really appreciate you bringing up that story. And I also kind of understand why you had to get into that B2B space, because that opportunity wouldn't have been realistic back, in your grandparents' time.
It wasn't scalable. And it just, like sometimes right place, right time, you meet the right people for the right partnership, right? Sometimes it's serendipity. I think they needed us and we needed them at that time. And two companies that just had the right leadership and the right, we were kind of each other's cart and horse, right? Certain times we pulled, certain times they pulled. But in the end, it was a really fruitful relationship. Awesome. So the only sidebar of this story is that as a kid, I grew up around the kitchen table with only talking about business.
Okay.
For me personally, and that's why I'm so proud of the story, is my life is synonymous with the business. And there are a lot of people, and I went to Tulane University for school. What's the best way to say it? I mean, it's a very privileged place to go to school. It's a lot of kids that come from very privileged backgrounds. And great university in New Orleans, awesome. Most of the kids that went there don't know what their parents do for a living.
Wow.
Didn't really, or if they did, it was my dad. I know you're walking around with a Chanel bag, and you're like, I think my dad's in finance. It's like, for me, I spent every weekend going to the factory. Right. I knew every employee's name. Every office employee was like my uncle and my aunt. Right. I was comfortable and safe there. I knew like the kitchen table was talking about all the drama at work.
Yeah.
So for me, it was never that separation.
Sure.
Like I think it got me to a point of appreciation of all the privileges I had because my parents exposed me to the reality. And when you have a manufacturing business, it's quite a diverse background. We were the largest second chance employer in Philadelphia. So by the time that I left the business in 21, and I'll get to why we left, but when I left, we had over 400 people that were formerly incarcerated. So a beautiful mission and something that was not even a mission in the beginning. It just happened.
Sure.
We just weren't background checking 20 years ago. And, little by little, we gave that opportunity. And, when you look at it, I had the opportunity to meet people
and manage
at
a point too, right?
Point,
like
absolutely.
there were you're overseeing, you're having them buy in on a bigger mission other than themselves. I mean, that's awesome. That's great management experience.
The best employees and the best people we had were the ones that we gave opportunities to where they couldn't get opportunities elsewhere.
Sure.
So for us, like as a kid, I got to experience some pretty diverse backgrounds.
And good for you. Yeah. Good for you for noticing that. I mean, the whole Tulane story that's wild. They don't know what their parents do. But I mean, you were synonymous with the business. You understood the business inside and out. And I think the biggest takeaway for maybe our audience is, you have this skill, which we're going to talk about your company now, that you transferred over. You have like this blueprint, right? And you could have went in any direction, though.
Absolutely. I had a blank canvas. It's hard to put a finger on. I think when you ask most entrepreneurs, like, what is it? Like, what is it that makes you want to run a business, own a business? Why? It's like, I can't put my finger on exactly why. I think I saw my parents and my grandparents be in these positions of leadership, and take care of people. And it was so interwoven. Like, I see people go to work every day and they hate their jobs. Yeah. And their job is like such a separation from their life. And my family found a way to kind of interweave it with everything they did.
Didn't feel like work.
It felt like light. It just felt
just life.
Right? Because it's like going to the factory wasn't any different than going to the grocery store or going to summer camp, because that was life for us.
I think that's the secret sauce, right? Like, you could have opened up a restaurant and it would have been an awesome restaurant because you learned these things from
especially
the manufacturing
with me taste
company.
testing. Come on, as you can see.
To the point is, you have a blueprint, you have the secret sauce. You can go to any industry and have those core values.
Absolutely.
And to the name of the company that you are now.
Is intentional too.
So we need to get to it. I don't want to keep our audience waiting any longer.
End of the story is this: 2019, we sold the business to private equity. I joined the business out of college. My sister as well, who's involved with core value. I'll talk about. Long and short of it is that we grew the business. We had 1,100 employees, multiple hundreds of thousands of square feet around Philadelphia. Private equity group came in. They owned a couple other companies that were in a similar industry across the country. And we did 100% exit after 50 years. Really amazing. Retired my parents, gave our family generational wealth and flexibility. And I was 25 when I left the business, so fairly young, still fairly young.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
And had a mix of really interesting things. I had time. I had money.
Sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And
you didn't get locked up.
Yes, and I had a professional experience where I really could do anything.
Yeah.
I also had a team. Yeah. So I had my sister, who is my business partner, who is someone that, once again, like working with your siblings, working with your parents can be daunting. Mm-hmm. It's just natural. It's just what we do. And I also have a team. I mentioned Aldo, and then as well our chief operating officer of 20 years, my dad's right-hand best friend, his name's Eric. He joined the team as well. So I knew I had this team of people that wanted to work together. Mm-hmm. Had no idea what we were going to do.
Yeah. I just got time, money, and this group of people I really like a lot.
I'm just happy it wasn't like cocaine that we did. It's like, but it definitely. So I celebrated my 25th birthday. My friends jokingly threw me a retirement party.
That's funny.
I'm like, come on.
Was Nick there too?
Nick was there.
So it's good.
Yeah, I'll get quick reference on Nick. Nick has been my best friend since I've been born. We were planned to be born together. Yeah. He was just the best man at my wedding, and Nick is also our marketing manager at Core Value. Yeah. So I brought Nick on after I started
another
the
layer, just another layer of family culture and being surrounded by people that are inside your personal life and your work life. Yeah. And like the success that you've immediately had has everything to do with the script that you're following. Yeah. Like you just because, you're just getting this going and you're running circles around people that have been doing this for a while. And I've interacted with them. So Why?
I'd like to think my team is to
shout out to the team.
Yeah, I mean,
why insurance? Why did you choose insurance?
Great question.
Why are you doing it now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I knew I didn't want to get back into manufacturing.
Okay.
When you think about starting a business, there's a couple factors, right? Number one is the barriers to entry. What are those barriers? So first of all, I'd non-compete in the window manufacturing space, understandably.
You're a wanted man.
So yeah, I think it would have been a little bit of, although those are over, but I'm good. So number one, just cash for entry, right? Like manufacturing is in most kind of warehousing, sort of blue collar industry related things have a very cash intensive start to get into a business. A lot of equipment, long startup, and those relationships are really B2B, and they take years to build.
Sure.
Like my father was
your story example.
He was the master of vendor relationships, but they don't happen overnight. I mean, my dad's best man at his wedding and best friend, my uncle, was a guy who was one of his vendor reps, and a friend that he made at 20 something that became a lifelong friend, but that relationship doesn't happen overnight. Right. So I knew I wanted to get into an industry where I could be immediately impactful. I knew that the workforce I wanted to work with was something that looked similar to what I've seen with Power. I wanted young adults who had an entrepreneurial mindset, that were really hungry and wanted to do something where they could see the type of financial growth that they wanted. I have too many friends that came out of college that have changed jobs 5 times. They make $60,000 to start. I use the Vanguard example, although my friend's dad, he texted me after I said that on one of my videos. He goes, "Why are you taking shots at Vanguard?" Yeah. He was a Vanguard employee for a long time. Yeah. But that type of example, right? Sure. Or you go be an underwriter, go do a million different jobs. It's hard to see the kind of financial progression. You're working crazy hours, and you are literally like there is a clear ceiling on what you can do. Absolutely. So those couple of things, and then lastly, I wanted to do something that I felt good about doing. I wanted to help people. So important. I am a firm believer in I know there's probably it's probably not the right way to explain it, but being able to do charitable or kind of mission-driven work while also making money is probably the most scalable way to do it. I understand what you're saying. Right. Yeah, so if I can help people while also making money, I'm probably going to keep doing it. That's awesome. So it's like, and good for you for actually just being open about that, because there's a lot of people that might hide behind those organizations. You know what? It became with our family, with our family, it was called Northeast Building Products. We called it MVP. With MVP, like, that's what happened with the second chance portion of it, right? Okay. It financially benefited us, right? But it also was a mission of the company. It became a part of the culture, and we were doing good. That's great. When I'm working with parole officers. I'm literally going to the halfway houses to meet with people. Right. Our buddy Nick right now, he's over there making some barbecue at a location that we probably will be at soon. Absolutely. So I really commend you for that. Doing something mission driven. So I had a friend that was selling insurance, doing Medicare specifically. He was living in Florida. He was working actually in the call center space, which is tough space and tough. Really not customer focused and friendly, but interesting. Yeah. I went down and saw him, what he was doing. Then I brought my team. Once again, I'm lucky. I had a kind of team that was ready to do anything. This is kind of the team that we had, right? I had myself, who was kind of a jack of all trades, and my specific background really is a lot of HR focus and a lot of the recruiting. I had a master operator in Eric, who was a chief operating officer. We had 1,000 employees. Alda, who was a financial expert. My sister, who was compliance procurement. She did all the purchasing for our group. And then Nick with our marketing. You're leaving yourself without any holes, right? All you now need to do is learn the industry and the experience and just build relationships. So go down there, learn about what's going on. The Medicare space at that time was really hot financially. There was a lot of investment. Private equity was swarming around it. A lot of companies that were going public, that were mass distributing. Just to give you an idea, as a Medicare brokerage, we work with private insurance carriers, similar to how you guys do. We work with health insurance carriers, Humana, Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross, locally Jefferson. We work with a lot of different organizations that supply Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplement plans to seniors, people over the age of 65. So went down, saw his call center, realized in our mind that we could do it more efficiently. We thought that we could have a better customer experience. There was a really good financial opportunity to do it. And within a year, had 30 to 40 agents on the phone selling, sold a couple thousand policies through our first enrollment period, and have a 13,000 square foot office that is up in Trevose, Pennsylvania, and went all in, made the investment, made the time investment. And it was it was great from a production perspective. Like from a pure metric perspective, we did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
But we realized this is a call center experience. We were helping people, but it wasn't the level of customer experience and service we wanted. We were agnostic to what part of the country we worked
That's
in.
true.
We weren't working in our backyard. Like we had 50 years of experience working with people in Philadelphia. Now we're selling products across the country. And a lot of our agents that we worked with were remote.
Sure.
And within a year, it was very easy to kind of put a pulse on it and go, this doesn't feel like
family business,
you know?
or even the culture that we mentioned that Power Home Remodeling had, or things that we were referencing was what we wanted to have. That's interesting. And the other piece is, the ability to attract young talent too.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the people we had were, and we still have, and they're amazing. Like they do their role and they do a great job. They are focused on supporting customers telephonically. They're not trying to build their book of business. They're not they're not a career agent, right? They're people that are using this really just as more of a job.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And they do a great job. And I have three amazing agents that are home that focus telephonically. They're experts in their craft. It's hard to find people like that. So quickly, I realized that I needed to pivot for a few reasons. Number one, I wasn't attracting young talent who was seeing the entrepreneurial path that I was laying out. And I think certainly we both can speak to what the financial opportunity is for a young insurance agent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Number two, the customer experience wasn't interpersonal enough. So I wasn't sitting face-to-face with the beneficiaries and really educating them and getting to learn about their life. It was a very transactional type of interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, for us, the book of business that we were building, it wasn't sticky enough, right? So these customers...
No loyalty.
Not much loyalty, right? Because you're not really getting deep with them. So... and I wasn't serving Philadelphia. And I think it might be a little cliche, but I mean, I am a firm believer in serving your community.
No, that makes sense.
I think that
if I was selling, I mean, we were licensed in some odd states, but when one of our agents sells an insurance policy to somebody in Arkansas, it doesn't feel like the same as selling it to the local deli that you go and buy.
100%. Deli. That's what I love about what you guys do, because I think if people took care of their community and sold in their community and supported their community, it would be we live in a much better world. And my reference point is I'm Jewish, and it's not always a physical community, geographic community, but the Jewish community is one of the most inner supporting communities that there is. So the level of referrals and the level of trust and the kind of the it's not a joke, it's a statistic, but the amount of times like the dollar changes hands in the Jewish community versus other communities is it's 10 to 1. Yeah. So for me, I look at Philadelphia as my community. So if I can offer service and I can be there and support that community, I know it's going to pay itself back to me.
Sure.
Because I can go deep, Yeah.
So
pivoted somewhat, half the business, and have now focused on getting young, not just young, but on the younger side generally, professionals who don't have any experience in insurance, who I can help license, train, coach, and help appropriately solicit and build entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So Austin, how do we both get them in different markets?
Yeah,
So
that's the challenge.
That was kind of what we when we first sat down, we talked about. We're kind of synonymous in the fact that we're trying to market our brand and grow our teams.
Yeah.
That's based on everything that you just explained where CVI is at right now. These are the pieces. You learned your product, you understand your product. Now you're trying to work on brand awareness, community engagement, and growing the team.
Absolutely.
And you hit the nail on the head. I'm looking for just younger demographic wise individuals who are selling home and auto insurance.
Yep.
So with PNC, I found a lot of success in the commercial side.
Yep.
Our agency focuses on business insurance, and I think that's why we jive so well. So if someone has worked for State Farm, Geico, Liberty Mutual, which is now called Comparion, Allstate, these home and auto shops that only really focus on home and auto and maybe some small business insurance, I'm really trying to target those 1 to 2 year agents that want to sell the real stuff.
Yeah, well, you're captive, right, when you're working for them. Yeah. So, I mean, I typically target, I don't target those at individuals, but it's a similar demographic.
Yeah.
And I target, people like that we talked about, power they may hire, or even people that would go work at a State Farm for me, it's building a career. At State Farm, it's kind of hard to build a long-term career. You're captive to their product. It's hard to make the carrier relationships that you need, build your own book, and also build an agency. I mean, they do give you structure, but
it's a good stepping stone.
It is a good stepping stone.
And I think we're both kind of looking for those same individuals. Yeah. And I think when it comes down to it, whether you're selling Medicare or you're selling PNC, it's the company, the brand that you are being represented behind that really matters.
So I talked to a younger guy today, 24 years old, and he had opportunities to go do a ton of different sales jobs, things that are less, they're not healthcare in any way driven, right? So he was solar that he was selling. So he was taught when he went through training initially. It was all like this bravado salesman, kind of like mumbo jumbo. And what we talked a lot about this morning was, in my mind, a good young salesperson needs to do two things. Number one is be an educator, right? So learn your product, learn the skill, right? And you can only do that by working with a mentor and people like us, right? So I had a mentor in this space. I had two mentors, shout them out, Bobby Beach, Medicare Bob, and Brian Lubin, two guys that took me under their wing and taught me a ton about this space. They educated me. They made sure I had all the appropriate resources. And I knew that when I went into any conversation, I was educated about what I was talking about. Yeah. On the flip side then, a good salesperson also needs to be confident, right? Absolutely. You need to be able to be confident, build relationships, and there's that salesman aura that it's hard to always put a finger on what that really is. But I do boil it down to confidence, because if you just walk around like you know what you're talking about, and you talk like you're confident, you know what you're talking about, it goes a long way.
You can't have confidence without the education. So it's kind of like you got to educate yourself first, because the confidence really comes from knowing what the hell you're talking about. So
most young salespeople are overly confident and undereducated.
There you go.
So for me, my goal is, and this is why I love working with REMCO, and I love everything you guys are doing in the podcast and everything is that every person that has joined your team is equally educated as they are confident. That's right. True. And that reflects in your Google reviews, and it reflects in the fact that your brand is growing, and so on and so forth. It reflects in that people don't think you're a scam.
I appreciate that.
On the flip side, you can also be overeducated and not have that and that's why a lot of salespeople fail. But when you have that appropriate balance, and then you partner yourself with the right branding, you set yourself up for a career. I tell I just hired.
That's a great point.
5 or 6 people, right?
Yeah.
I hired 5 or 6 young people that are in licensing right now. And my advice to all of them was, if you are joining Core Value Insurance Group for a job, I don't want you here.
Yeah, it's good.
If you're building a career, if you're here for 3, 5, 7 years, and your goal is to then go out and start your own agency and be an entrepreneur, I will invest everything I possibly can.
That's great. That's great, because you're saying that even if they're using CVI as a stepping stone for something larger, you're still willing to give them that education as long as they see it for a career opportunity.
Yeah, I hope I do that larger thing with them.
No, that's awesome.
Right?
That's great.
I'm hoping they need liquidity and funding and infrastructure and a team to help them go out and start their own agency.
There's a broker that comes to mind, and somewhat of a mentor, but he has his own PNC agency in New Jersey, and he said, I love our employees before they get there, while they're here, and when they leave.
That's awesome.
So it's like he also fosters that type of care. But you're spot on, and it's good that you set the stage early, that this is not just a job, this is a career.
It is not a job. And it's one of those things where I'm sure you have the same experience. I talk to insurance agents we try to buy books of business.
Yeah, of course.
If you have a Medicare book of business, you're interested in selling,
call this guy.
Area, call me. I'll buy it. But we try to buy books of business, and it's typically insurance agents that are aging out and don't have a succession plan, which is totally understandable. Yeah. So we'll buy their revenue streams, and
it's responsible too. I'm sorry, but it's responsible for them to find an outlet like yourself to be able to do that. Otherwise, what happens to their book?
Their book it deteriorates.
It deteriorates.
Right?
It gets disserviced. So
100%.
So go on. Sorry.
And so for us, we have a really good model of buying the book of business and then going and servicing the consumer. When I'm talking to these agents, typically the thing that comes up is, man, I wish I started at your age, right? Because a lot of them start when they're 50 and 60, and they don't have the time horizon to let their book of business build.
That's it, man.
If you start in your early 20s, yeah, sure, you're not going to make a ton of money your first year, because your first even 15, 16 months. But over time, the relationships, your book of business is building, and you're getting your renewals. So
God don't make more time, man. He don't make more land, and he don't make more time. Land for the realtors and time for the business professionals. I just hired an 18-year-old kid. 18 years old. And my pitch to him was, dude, I'm 27.
you could make a ridiculous
You're
amount
like
of
almost
money.
like you're envious. You're like,
Yeah,
you're
I'm
so
like,
young. Give me
because
some of that youth. But
you
you're
don't-
right.
You
You're
don't
right.
need to scale that fast, and you live at home with your parents. Like you just need to build relationships, and it's harder the younger you are to have that like authority. I think some people can be afraid of youth at times when they're working with them, especially in something for us it's so delicate as healthcare.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
but if you're educated and you're confident, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you're there.
Yeah.
So for us, it's telling the story, and that's what excites me. Like I can't wait for in 3 years to see where a lot of our people are now,
Mm-hmm.
because I know our brand's going to be bigger. I know that our relationships, the other lines of insurance, our partnerships,
Mm-hmm.
but some of these people are going to take beautiful entrepreneurial routes, and nothing is going to make me happier
That's
than
good.
to see them
That's
be
good.
successful.
And that's a good point too. So something that I started really doing in the past couple of years is looking at those bigger PNC firms, and if they're gracious enough to give me some time to shadow or learn from them, make that as a 2, 3, 4, 5 year goal for yourself. And also, if the wheel ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, with our industry, like you mentioned, if you're young but you know the product, you're selling a very delicate product. You're not selling a hamburger or something like that. So when you're dealing with somebody who's over the age of 65 talking to someone who's 18, there might be a little bit of a lack of trust there.
Yes.
But that's where the education comes in. But to the larger firms that I've been trying to mentor off of, or just trying to connect, you know, like you to Custom, trying to understand a little bit more from a family business that's been around for 2 generations. So
and the fact they're one of, I mean, after talking with them, like they're one of the few privately owned Medicare FMOs that still's out there. So I admire it for sure. Like they do great work, and but once again, 20, 25 years in the business, multiple generations.
But yes,
which is a beautiful thing.
But so I guess my point is, like, I look to these big firms knowing that like it's not just a fantasy. Like this can happen.
Absolutely.
And I try to just use, every day, make it intentional, every week, every year, to try to work towards that goal.
And I think it's when you said about time, it's funny. You're right. There is no more time. I mean, we're in a similar generation.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the same generation. I'm the last year of the millennials. But even if you just look at this kind of younger, under 35, under 40 age range, the biggest problem that people have is they're not patient. They don't give themselves time to grow.
Yeah.
So everyone's looking for immediate gratification.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I suffer from it my own self. Like I look at a business like I want to grow fast, and it's like, sometimes you just kind of gotta water it and let it grow.
That's true.
And especially for a young entrepreneur, I mean, I think social media and I think venture capital and other things like that plays a negative role at times because it creates unrealistic expectations of growing a business.
That's
like
true.
Not everyone's going to grow in a 40x business overnight.
Yeah.
Not everyone.
They make it look so convincing too.
Yeah, of course. I mean, not everyone's Tony Robbins or what's the dude Andy Elliott with the tight shirt. Like, not everyone is that. You know what I mean? Like, we're also real human people and normal.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that if you can stick with something and go through the highs and the lows, 99, especially if it's an entrepreneurial thing, there will be good things on the other side.
Absolutely.
Like, look, if you're in a job, you're miserable, you hate it, you have another opportunity, like, do what you got to do,
Take
right?
it, yeah.
But if you're building a career and it's just simply that you haven't reached that mountaintop that you're looking for, like, you got to climb.
Yeah.
Like, I'm climbing. My business is not highly profitable. We're not making a ton of money. No, we're growing. We're growing the business, right?
You will.
I will.
You will. And I know you
luckily I have a good CFO that projects,
I know that you will.
P&Ls out for 10 years.
100%. But that confidence, even if, you are in the trenches and it's hard to see the light,
Absolutely.
You will have that long.
Listen, it took 50 years for my family.
Yeah, that's I was going to say.
Great. My people, it's funny. People look at some of the things we have now. Parents build a beautiful shore house. They're building a house in Aruba, and they don't know what was behind that. Like, my parents worked from 6 a.m. to 7 at night. I had a grandmother that took care of me for the most part, who was amazing. Was like a third parent. I don't know if she wasn't there. I don't know what they would have done. And every Saturday they worked, and their entire physical, mental, and emotional commitment was to 3 things. Their 3 children: my sister, myself, and the business.
Yep.
So, what you have at the end, right, is a complete reflection of the work that you do. But that's no different,
and that's no different than your comparison to social media, because social media is just the house on the lake or in Aruba, but not the work, the blood, the sweat, and the tears behind the scenes to get there. Yeah.
My parents could write a multi-1,000-page novel of their trials and tribulations, of the ups and the downs, and it was worth it. And there were the sacrifices. I know they'll say it's worth it, and I'll give them credit because they were amazing parents to like I say, all three of their children.
And the business.
Yeah. I mean, they were, but
for sure,
it's an investment. And I think, that's the pitch. And it's not, it's, some people just can't do it. Like some people just typically, they just can't get themselves to see their way through those difficult times to get to that point. And for me, I'm excited because I know I have a couple people right now, some guys and gals that are phenomenal, and I know they're going to see the other side of the rainbow. Like they're going to get there.
Yeah, and they need you to believe it too.
Yeah,
they need you to believe it every day, almost sometimes when they don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would agree with that because I've had mentors in my life who've done that for me, for sure. And you need someone to check you. I use people. Everyone hates me at work for using this, but I talk about the 3 A's.
Okay.
The 3 A's is the thing. I mean, I've been lucky to work with, like I said, literally I'm picking you up from the halfway house to, C-level executives at extremely high levels of, public companies, so on and so forth. Yeah. Everyone else in between. There's 3 things that you need to be successful.
I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm ready to go.
I call it my 3 A's. Okay. The first one is attendance.
Yeah.
You just got to show up.
Got to be in the room.
Right? If you don't show up, you can't be successful. If you commit to being somewhere, you need to be there. If you need to be at work at 7 a.m., be there at 7 a.m. 7:05 is late, right? If you don't need to be there and you want to stay later, sure, make your schedule. But if you promise to be somewhere, you need to be there and commit.
That's good.
Number one, I don't care if you're the C-level executive or the person who's swiping in, who's literally leaving the halfway house to drive over to work or get driven to work, right, by their parole officer. So everyone else in between. Number 2 is attitude, right? You got to be positive, right? You got to be someone that people want to work with.
Yeah.
I know so many people that are so talented. I'm sure you know them. We all know them. If you're out there who I'm talking about, who are highly skilled at what they do.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to curse in here?
Yeah.
They're assholes.
Right?
That's
a good one. That's not
beep
good.
it out.
Yeah.
They're not nice people, or they're cold and they're not welcoming. So, part of being successful is like being a nice, genuine person who treats people respectfully.
Sure.
And I talk about every stakeholder in the company. So whether that's your coworker, a customer, a vendor, one of the owners of the company, one of the people that is mowing the lawn outside of our building, every single stakeholder that supports CVIG, you need to have a positive attitude with.
Sure.
But the third one is far and away the most important. It's accountability.
Absolutely.
You have to be accountable for your actions. I often remind my team I make more mistakes than them every day. Mm-hmm. It just happens. It's not their problem.
No.
Right? I am 100% accountable for my own successes and failures. Mm-hmm. And if I choose to not learn from my failures and I choose to not take those failures and try and, make them something that I can use to expand my business in some future way, then that's on me. Unfortunately, I always joke, most people fire themselves. They're not accountable for their actions. They try to blame everyone else for their failures. Life isn't fair. I did start ahead of you. I did have a lot of advantages. What I do with them is up to me.
That's
right.
True.
I'm a firm believer in everyone's floor is different, but their ceiling is not.
That's excellent.
Right. It's just
That's
truth.
A good nugget, man. Anybody listening, there's 3 A's. So attendance, attitude, accountability.
If you do those 3 things, I don't care what job you're in. You're going to be successful. And especially in something like this where you have an uncapped income potential.
Yes.
More
people need to those we're trying to recruit need to know about that more. They need to know about that, because we mentioned it early in the podcast, talking about some of these jobs that you kind of punch a clock and there's a ceiling. This industry, for somebody who's aggressively trying to make the most out of their life, it's unlimited.
It is literally unlimited, and there's no barrier to entry, so you can get in without putting any cash in. You literally just have to pass a licensing exam. Mm-hmm. You can work with someone like Jay and I who are experienced, who want to put you in a position to be successful. You're not selling a scam product. You're not selling Bang Energy. You know what I mean? You're not selling crap. We are legitimately changing people's lives with the healthcare that we provide them.
Absolutely.
9 out of 10 people that we talk to are underserved and were duped in some way.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit of that. So
please.
Today is a special day for CVI, and they're down in Philadelphia area.
Yeah, Riverside Presbyterian. So we are down, my team and Nick, who was going to be here with me today, but is down filming some great content for our team down there. We are working with Caring for Friends, an awesome nonprofit in Philly that serves seniors. Definitely check them out. They're a good partner for us and someone I would definitely recommend people who are looking to kind of find a way to help the senior population in Philly. They're awesome. They're right up in Bensalem. Yeah. We're working with them today we're just doing a barbecue to feed seniors. And Our goal today is not to enroll anyone in Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
Our goal today is not to sell a thing. Our goal is to show up and serve an underserved population.
Yep.
Because what I've learned in working with seniors now for a couple of years is that not everybody treats their grandmother like I do. Love my Bubby. She's great. Like she's a great lady. And, but
Bubby, I love it. I know
there's
what you're
always
saying.
a grandchild there for her.
Yeah.
She has great support, and we have a beautiful relationship. And I've had great relationship with all four of my grandparents. 2 of them have deceased, but my whole life I had great relationships with them. Not everybody's like that.
That's a good way to put that into perspective. Yeah, absolutely.
2 things happen. Either, number one, you stuff your parents in one of these senior facilities, and
sure.
that's underfunded.
Sure.
Number one, and they become either a ward of the state, or they just don't have the infrastructure to support those individuals. So we go to buildings. We went over in Philly to University Square Complex. It's in West Philly. It's in Eamon Brown's district, Councilman Brown, and we did some great work there. We went and did a Valentine's Day event.
That's great.
I brought 4 or 5 people. We went and served lunch with Caring for Friends. You would have thought that no one had walked in that building to see these people in years.
Your brand will never be forgotten. They will remember that brand.
So the best part is this is what was so meaningful.
Yeah, that's
so
awesome.
The first time we went was Thanksgiving. Then we went back for Valentine's Day. And we went back for Valentine's Day. We had a DJ. We were playing music.
Yeah.
We were dancing with the ladies. We went back one more time, and on their bulletin board, it was full of just pictures of us.
That's
and they
awesome.
Were asking. They called Caring for Friends. When are the guys from Core Value coming back?
I love it.
And
I love it.
Look, we enrolled some people in Medicare there too.
Sure.
And there was, of course, a professional kind of avenue that we took there, and we have this beautiful relationship. But we also did something that felt really good. We built a meaningful relationship, and we served a highly underserved population.
And the business was the byproduct. The primary intention was everything that you mentioned earlier in the podcast about you and your team visiting that call center and being so transactional.
It was the opposite.
It's the exact opposite. Yeah. So a true
number one, we got a ton of referrals too.
Because it's always the byproduct.
Yeah, the byproduct is referrals.
Yeah.
Number 2, it is way stickier business because they know me. They know my agents and they know what we're about. They know the culture of the company.
And that fits the culture.
100%.
So we're going to get into one last thing before I forget. And this is a shout out to another one of our previous guests and a mentor for me. He's a PNC agent in Idaho. Yeah. His name is Matt Dietz. He has Agency Launch Podcast and a few other spinoffs. Very, very highly educated PNC agent, and he suggested something to me this morning. He sent me an audio file and a text, and he said, "Jay, you should try this on your podcast today." So I'm gonna ask all of our guests and future guests, and you're gonna be the first one.
There you go.
The same question.
Awesome.
Okay, I might already kind of know the answer to this question for you, but it's gonna be one question that I'm gonna ask at the conclusion of each podcast.
Wonderful.
And that question is, who is your role model? You get to pick one person.
He might chop my legs off if I don't sit now. My dad, for sure.
All right.
My father's my role model. He was a excellent businessman. He's a great father, a great husband, and treats people as human beings. My dad is innovative, but my dad is someone that is he's one of a kind. He is everyone's friend. He is my friends. Think of him more than a friend than my friend's dad.
Sure.
But what he was able to do with our business, and while also balancing supporting our family and supporting my mom, and always keeping those things balanced, it's 100%. I'm very lucky that I have someone in my life that I can model after.
That's awesome.
The luckiest thing and the best thing that he did was he exposed me to everything.
Yep.
Like I will expose my kids. And one of the reasons I'm doing this, and I want to grow a business, and I'm not eager to ever get rid of it anytime soon, is because, even if we had the chance to, is I want to have the same type of relationship that I want my kids to have the same type of relationship with my business that I have
That's awesome.
with my families, because
they want to pass that torch.
Yeah. My dad opened the door. My dad involved me and let me sit in on conversations that I was not mature enough for yet. And my dad, was fair. I'll say this, like my dad held me accountable for my actions, but, it just showed us a lot of love. So when you kind of think, when I think about what's important to me, I just got married, in April.
I see the ring.
High school sweetheart.
That's awesome.
My wife, Jenny, is amazing. And eventually she will join our business for sure. Don't know when.
No questions asked.
No questions asked, because
this is a family business.
It's a family business, and for her, like it's one
No,
dream,
I get
right?
it.
Like
That's
I'm
awesome.
lucky to work with my sister, who is amazing and is just someone that is kind of my yin and yang. Like my sister can be the bull, and when I don't want to be, and I can be the opposite. And it's great, but when you add other layers of the family, and it's amazing. But I watched my dad balance all of that, and never let it kind of affect the core. Like most family businesses fall apart, and because of sort of just the infighting and the control. My dad was clear. He was the HMF. He was the head MFer, as he calls himself. Yeah. And everybody else was respected. And, he found a way to listen, but also just be in a position where
he could lead.
He could lead.
We could
all feel confident. So for me, there's no doubt. I have other role models.
No, that's a good one. That's spot on.
But and I know the dad's the cliche answer, but people joke, like I've taken so much professionally from him, and more personally, like he's been such a great father, and his father I know was his role model. Sure. So
and there's no cliche. I think that with this question, I think a lot of people are going to have some real special answers, and it's going to be all across the board. So with that, we're coming to an end with the episode. I really appreciate you having us on. I just wanted to do a little kind of pitch for how people can find out, get in contact with you, your agents, CVI.
So, absolutely. So I'll talk, if you were interested in our services. Number one, a lot of people have parents that really don't. And I'll go back to this. Medicare is confusing. Okay, you'll go see Joe Namath on television talking about it. Most of these people, I would say, they're not trying to scam you, but they really don't care about what plan your parents are in or you're in yourself. They probably are only appointed with a few carriers or sitting in a call center, and don't really understand your needs. So if you're local and you'd like one of our agents to come out and sit with you and educate you on Medicare, we're more than happy to. We have a lot of people who's reach out on behalf of their grandparents or parents, because open enrollment is coming up October 15th. Anyone who's over the age of 65 or nearing it, I'd put your cell phone on Do Not Disturb, because you're about to get 1 million calls from someone in the Philippines trying to connect you with an insurance agent. So instead of answering or looking at the 1,000 mailers that you're about to get, you can reach out to us. You can look us up online. You can reach out to us on social media. There's a million ways to contact Core Value Insurance Group. Like I said, you can come to our offices in Trevos, or simply just have one of our agents. You can reach out. One of our agents will come to you. Really anywhere. I mean, as long as I don't got to get on a plane, I can get it. And if you're in another state and you see this, I probably work with an agent who can serve you in that state too.
There you
go.
We have
a really nice network. But if you're someone who's interested in working with us, definitely DM me on Instagram. You can also go on our website. We have a lot of information. We are always recruiting and hiring. There's really never a period. I would say we're a little hot and heavy right now, but if you're young, if you're hungry, if you're looking for a space with uncapped potential, you want to be a part of a good company, I'm looking for people to mentor.
That's
right.
Awesome.
And what my mentorship is worth, well, it's hard for me to say. Other people could tell you. I think it might be worth
the hourly
something.
rate is incracing every day as he gets more educated.
We'll
you dropped a lot of good knowledge. For those listening, there's not a lot of companies out there like CVI, REMCO, or some of the other privately owned firms. They tend to them get gobbled up. So if you want to work for a brand or a company or a culture, whether it's on the PNC side or the Medicare side, reach out to one of us. And thank you for listening. Awesome. Austin, thank you for being on.
Thank you so much. And like I said, I can't speak highly enough about REMCO, everything we've seen so far. And honestly, Jay, it is incredible what you're doing for the community, the amount of small businesses that you support. I think that it's hard to get exposure. I'm lucky because I have the liquidity to invest in it right now. Most businesses don't. So the relationships you're making and the exposure you're giving to small businesses, it's hopefully, I know everyone probably says thank you, but from someone from a third party that's looking at it and now getting that exposure, I don't take it lightly, and I appreciate
that. That means a lot. We're going to be working together a lot more.
Absolutely.
All right.
Awesome.
See you, man.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Yep.